After the release of the second generation of Pokemon games, that was supposed to be it. So this next one is weird. Like, really, really weird. Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire released to the world in 2002, marking the third generation of Pokemon. These pair of games were released on the Game Boy Advance, a much more updated console compared to its predecessors, the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color. But how well do these games hold up? Do they continue the legacy of Pokemon that was supposed to end well? And how do they fare to the rest of the series? Let's find out. These games are weird. And I don't mean bad weird. I just mean they're not really supposed to be there. No one really talks about Ruby and Sapphire that much. Gold and Silver were supposed to be the conclusion to the Pokemon franchise. They were sequel games. And really, that was it. There wasn't really supposed to be anything afterwards. So Ruby and Sapphire are kind of their own thing for the most part, and that really plays well in some aspects. With no connection to the prior games, there's a lot of new stuff in here. There are over 130 Pokemon this time around, which gives you a lot of options. And unlike Gold and Silver, you have a lot of options at the beginning. There are a lot of Pokemon that you can use to build your team at the beginning, choosing from new and old Pokemon. The graphics look pretty good compared to the Game Boy. You have new cutscenes, new sprites, new everything. They had to do a lot with this because the system was more updated and better. The story this time around revolves around legendary Pokemon rather than the previous games, where you just fought Team Rocket. Rather, instead, you're focused on two new teams, Team Aqua and Team Magma, and depending on which game you have, which is new for the series, you have story differences. On Pokemon Ruby, you fight Team Magma and go after Groudon, while in Sapphire, you fight Team Aqua and go find Kyogre. These legendary Pokemon are much different than what we've seen in previous games. These ones are worshipped as legendary Pokemon of the weather, meaning they have some story behind them and things that you didn't expect to see from previous games. Speaking of weather, these games are all about weather. With the new updated weather feature, weather now affects the game itself, with weather now impacting Pokemon in battle such as sandstorm and hail, and also rain and sunny weather can boost Pokemon moves. You also have abilities and natures and stat changes, which now help for a more strategic battle, and even something out of left field, Pokemon contests. And these may seem bizarre, but they're fun little mini games. But for the most part, there's a lot of new stuff here that really added on. As much as I like, Red and Blue and Gold and Silver, you gotta admit, these were very much a step up in the right direction here. You had a lot more to work with the Game Boy Advance, rather than the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color. However, as with every Pokemon game, there are some bad things that I have to mention. There is a review that IGN put out a few years ago that many of us already know. 7.8 out of 10, too much water. It came from these games. Technically, it came from the remakes, but there is a lot of water in this game. And I'm not even joking with that. Half of the region map is water. Now, of course, it makes sense from where Hoenn is based off of, but oh my god, the surfing is annoying. Think of it this way. Surfing is like running through the grass all the time, where you encounter random Pokemon, but they're so underleveled than you by the time you get to surfing anyways. Once you get to surfing, your Pokemon are around level 30, level 35-ish. You fight Pokemon that are like level 9s, which absolutely sucks because not only can you not gain XP from them, they're just plain annoying. They just suck. Now, the music in this game is pretty good, for the most part, unless you don't like trumpets. There are a lot of trumpets. A lot of people meme on it that Hoenn is filled with trumpets. But if you're not a fan of trumpets, you're not gonna like the music in this game. There are a lot of HMs here that you have to use. They should just dive in these pair of games. And this is the only really time that you can use dive to go underwater in these games. But there are a lot of HMs, meaning you have to use a lot of HM slaves, which really sucks. But I will admit, Tropius does make a good Pokemon to use for an HM slave. Rivals and other characters are kinda compared to previous games. You no longer have that jerk rival, but instead a friendly rival. Which, well, not everyone likes, but you could do a little bit more story with those people. Post game is kind of also non-existent. It does have some things. You can go catch some legendary Pokemon such as Rayquaza, do some mini games with the Reggies, which can be kind of annoying with the Relicanth and Wailord. And then of course, there's Latios and Latias, roaming legendary Pokemon. Remember how I said that was annoying? They're back! Except it's not the legendary beast this time. God, that sucks. Yeah, these don't have a way to track them either. At least there's only one per game. Thank God you don't have to go after 3. Oh my God, it's horrible. But of course, Latios is exclusive to Ruby and Latias is exclusive to Sapphire. So, fantastic. Ugh. And it's post-game, so you don't have to worry about it as much, so yay. For some reason, they also got rid of the visual effects for the day and night cycle. We don't know why. It just happened. But hey, you can still get an Espeon and Umbreon because the clock still exists. And finally, what a lot of people were upset about. Remember how I mentioned earlier that these games have really no story connection to the last games? Well, that goes for connectivity too. There is absolutely no way you can transfer your Pokemon from Red and Blue, Yellow, Gold and Silver, and Crystal to Ruby and Sapphire. Even by link cable, you can't do it. No one knows why. Maybe it was just hardware issues, maybe it was just random stuff, but really, connectivity just doesn't exist for these games. But in the end, we got Fire Red and Leaf Green later on, so we got remakes of Red and Blue. So it worked out. Overall, these games aren't really talked about, at least from my point of view. No one really talks about Ruby and Sapphire. I mean, you've got Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire that are probably better to play, and you've got more stuff to do in them. And also, they're recent games, so that helps. I mean, if you want to play Ruby and Sapphire, go ahead. I mean, I would recommend Emerald. Emerald has a lot more to do. But if you want the original Hoenn experience, go with these games. At least you don't have to go after Latios and Latias till the end. And Rayquaza. Oh God, Rayquaza. Don't do Rayquaza. No. You're gonna fall off the freaking tower. Don't do it. Please do not go after freaking Rayquaza. No!